Hello, crafty friends. Welcome. I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. I have something a little different for you today. I am a big fan of MFT stamps and dies, and I recently saw their club kit called Stylish Bouquet. And I don't buy their kit every month, but this one I was just in love with. I had to pick this one up. So I'm going to make a few cards using the Stylish Bouquet card kit from My Favorite Things. So here is the kit, and they always package it so beautifully. I almost hate to rip that pretty pink tissue paper, but I want to show you what's inside this kit. And this kit has already sold out, but I will link all of the supplies separately in the description box below because you can buy them separately. But I just fell in love with these supplies. So here is the kit contents as well as an example or several examples of what you can do with this kit. It comes with a set of sentiment stamps, and I loved the cute font of these. My favorite's the one that says "Hello, Dollface," but just fabulous sentiments with a lot of style. I loved these. This is a set of dies. These cut a lot of pretty details into the florals. These dies coordinate with this stencil, also called Flower Bouquet Builder. And it's fun because you can quickly add color to all of your die cuts using this stencil. Or you can use it separate. You don't have to use the dies with it if you don't want to. Comes with a full paper pad. This one is called Colorful Canvas. It has some really beautiful colors in it. You get 2 of each color, and then some pretty faux canvas texture on each page. It's a nice heavyweight pattern paper as well. And they always give you lots of cardstock. So you get a piece of heavyweight vellum. Here's black licorice, and then a craft, tropical teal, Caribbean sea, summer splash. These have such cute names. The next one's jelly bean green, sour apple, lemon drop, orange zest. This one is fire coral, wild cherry, and cotton candy. And then you get 2 sheets of the smooth white, and this is very heavyweight cardstock, all of them. So let's get started with the card projects. For card number 1, I went ahead using the colored cardstock that came in the kit, and I cut out all of my pieces for my first card. I'm taping them down temporarily to my grid paper. I just don't want them to shift because I am going to ink blend over these pieces using some Versamark ink. So I'm going to start with the leaves, and I line it up, and then I'm just tapping on the clear Versamark ink because I'm going to heat emboss over these pieces. And they're very easy to line up. And it's going to add some beautiful gold details to these leaves. So I'm using some antique gold embossing powder, and then I can just pour it back into the bottle. And using my tweezers, I pick these up and I just melt the embossing powder on these. Isn't that pretty? So I'll go ahead and melt all of these, and then I'll continue on with the flowers. I'm just gently flicking the back to get off the strays. I forgot to use my anti-static powder first. And now for some of the flowers. They're easy to line up, like I said, and if you don't line them up perfectly, they're very forgiving. Now let's do some of the smaller flowers. And then again, I'm going to use the same antique gold embossing powder from Simon Says Stamp and pour it over these flowers. Then I'll just flick off the excess. And these look really pretty on the flowers once they're melted. So let's melt the first one, and they just turn bright and shiny. Isn't that beautiful? It's fun to watch these melt. And then I'll do the same thing with the teal flowers. But these ones, I just used the small centers. So let's melt the centers on these. And of course, this is more of the antique gold. I'm going to flick this one off a little bit more. It had some strays on it. But it's just stunning. The gold looks pretty with these colored cardstocks. I'm putting together one of the berries, or this could be flower buds or berries. I used a little bit of glue, and then I'm just using my pickup stick to place these on top of this piece. And these have details cut into them as well. They're very cute. So this is a cover plate from My Favorite Things. It's really old, so I don't know if they have it in their shop anymore, but I've had it in my stash for years. But it cuts out these little faux stitched windows. I cut it out with craft as well as yellow, and I'm going to layer these up. The window pieces are going to be yellow on the inside, and then the outside just going to be this craft. So I'll layer the craft and the yellow together. This will just give it a little extra dimension and stiffness. And then I can glue this down onto this teal panel. This will be an A2 sized card, which is 5.5 by 4.25. And this frame is just slightly smaller than the panel. So I like how the blue peeks out from the edges. We'll center this on the blue panel. And then so that the insides of the windows are the same dimension or have the same dimension, I'm going to glue the craft windows down first. And then the yellow over it. And then it's the same height as the frame. So let me speed this up here, and we'll just take care of these windows. This is going to look really pretty behind the floral arrangement that I'm going to create on this card. I thought about popping these windows up with some foam adhesive, but then I decided it's going to have enough dimension with the flowers because I am going to put some foam behind some of the flowers. Okay, so our panel is ready to go. Let me pour out these flowers and lay them out. Arranging is the hardest part for me. It's fun, but I struggle with this part. However, these flowers are so cute that you can't go too wrong. So I'm going to use this sentiment that says, "Hello, doll face." Sorry, my head gets in the way there. I just want to make sure this is straight on the bottom window. I'll pick it up with the door of the Mini Misty and stamp it down using some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. Okay, now let's start arranging the flowers. I know that I want this piece near the sentiment, the little berries. So I started with that. And then my next focal piece is going to be this large flower. I'm removing some of the foam adhesive just because I want room to be able to tuck leaves and other flowers behind it. And then I'll start gluing the leaves down flat. I'll show this in its entirety. I'm not going to cut anything out. However, I am going to speed it up significantly because I do fuss a lot with my arrangement. So most of the flowers are going to be popped up with foam adhesive, and then the leaves will be glued flat down to the panel. And all of these colors just look so pretty together. I love MFT cardstock. I'm not being stingy with the amount of flowers and leaves I'm putting down on the front of this card. However, I do want some of the yellow to peek through. Some of the leaves I cut down just so I can tuck them behind the flowers easier. And here is the last leaf. I end up adding some gemstones to the centers of these flowers. Let's attach it to a white card base. I used the white cardstock that came in the kit to create my card bases. And here is a close-up look at the finished card. You can really see the etched details in the flowers when I hold it up close like this, but they're just stunning die cuts. And you can kind of see the faux texture on the patterned paper when I hold it up close. Okay, now let's move on to card number 2. I'm going to create my own pattern paper using the stencil and some inks and a piece of the craft cardstock. It's going to be a very subtle background piece, but that's okay. I'm going to add some flowers on top of this, but most of all, I just wanted to play with this stencil. So next we'll do some little yellow flowers. I'm not going to be stenciling out all of these images or their coordinating layers. This is just going to be very simple. Now for a little bit of saltwater taffy. This is such a pretty ink, and of course this is the latest one from Tim Holtz. And now to add even smaller details to this pattern. It has a little circle or little dot. Of course it's meant for a flower center, but I'm just using it as an extra little piece to fill out my background a little more. I'm going to set this aside to dry and do a little bit of die cutting, which I do off camera. And here are the pieces I'm going to use on top of this panel. So I'm going to make these really dimensional. There are 3 different sizes to these flowers. And I'm putting a foam square between the layers, so these are super dimensional. But I love how these turn out. And then the darkest color is on the bottom, and then it goes lighter as it goes up. Now let's do the little red and pink flowers. We'll start with the largest layer and add a foam square between these 2 layers. And then another foam square between the middle and the top layer. These look so pretty layered up like this. So I'm using another old set of dies from My Favorite Things. These are the rounded edge faux stitch dies. And I cut out a piece of the pink pattern paper. I'm going to round the edge on this panel as well using my 1/2 inch chomper, just so it matches the pattern paper that I die cut. I'll glue the pattern paper down flat in the center of this panel. And then I'm going to start building up my bouquet. So everything I'm going to glue down. I think I have enough dimension already behind these flowers. So again, I'm going to start with the berries and then attach the leaves next. I'm using the flower just to see where I want the leaves to go. And then I can glue down the flower on top of the leaves. I'm running out of glue here, so I'm going to have to get another glue bottle. So let's add a few light green leaves behind our red flower. I will be adding more flowers to this bouquet in just a minute. But after I put this one down, I want to stop for a minute and figure out my sentiments. I wanted to use the Hello Doll Face one again because I just love that one. But I'm going to use 2 other sentiments. The one on the front of the card is going to say, "Hey you." And I already cut out the sentiment for the inside of the card. It says, "You are a blessing." So let's cut out this sentiment. I'm just using one of my fishtail dies. I keep this one out on my desk. I have a few of these I just keep out because I use them a lot. I use my little sidekick to die cut this. And then I'll trim this down a little bit so that I can tuck it behind the flowers. So this is where I'm adding another flower up at the top. Just needed a little more fullness. And the sentiment I'm going to glue down flat as well. I'm just putting it under the end of the sentiment so the rest of it kind of pops up a little bit even though there's no foam adhesive behind it. So let's glue this down to the card base, and I rounded the corners on the card base as well. I added some gems, and here is the finished card. I really love those sentiments, the way they look, and there are so many to choose from. This is the only one that I decorated the inside on, but I'm going to have to go back and decorate the insides of the other two because I have a lot of leftover scraps. For card number 3, I'm going to start out with a background panel again. I'm using some Simon Says stamp ink, and I want just a soft blue behind my arrangement this time. So I'm tapping it off first on a piece of scrap paper, and then I'm bringing it over to my panel. And this panel I cut out with some MFT wonky stitch dies that I've had in my stash for ages. I'm just slowly building up the color. I just want it to be a really soft blue behind my flowers. Okay, now I can start arranging everything. This stem is going to go down flat. I'm just kind of dabbing it off the side so that the glue doesn't ooze out from behind it. I have a new glue bottle here, but I had to shake it because it was just really liquidy and runny. So I'm having a little bit of trouble with that on this die cut here, but I wiped it off and now I can just press that in place. The flowers are going to be popped up with some foam squares. And I love how they fit just right over the dots on this leaf die cut. It's hard to see the blue behind it on camera, but it is a little bit darker in person. I'll add a few little purple flowers down flat. This is just a very simple arrangement, but I love all of the white space on this card, and it was fast to do. I'm going to add a few more layers to these flowers, just using the smaller flowers, but I want to darken them a little bit, so I'm using ink to do this. I'm using some picked raspberry, and then the red one I'm using candied apple. I just wanted that to be a tad darker. This will add a little more interest to the flowers as well as a little more dimension. So let's pop up the first one with a foam square. As well as this red flower. I'm going to have to use a smaller square, foam square for this one. I'm using some of the circle dies next, just to add some cute airiness to this arrangement. And I'll just glue those down flat as well. It just needed a brighter color, so I'm adding yellow. This is going to be a get well card, so I'm going to stamp out the sentiment that says "Feel better soon" onto more white cardstock, and this is some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I am going to emboss this with some clear embossing powder so that I can add a little bit of ink over it, and I don't have to wait for it to dry. Otherwise, it could smudge the ink if you don't allow this VersaFine Onyx Black ink to dry. And I'll use a little bit of squeezed lemonade on top of this. I'll pop it up with some foam squares, and I'll put it right over the stem of these flowers. This will be backed with some pink cardstock. And then I can center my main panel right in the middle of the pink cardstock. I like using liquid glue because you can wiggle it in place. So I added some gems to the centers of the flowers, and here is a close-up look at the finished card. Isn't that just pretty and simple? Well, those are my trio of cards for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will have all of the links to these products listed in the description box below if you're interested in checking them out. Thanks so much for spending some of your time with me today. I hope you get a chance to sit down and do something crafty. Take care, my crafty friends. Bye.